Уважаемый господин Modi,
Your Excellency, Mr. Modi, dear friends, I am glad to welcome here the leading entrepreneurs of Russia and India. Here in this hall, we have more than 100 leaders of major companies from our countries, and this highlights that business is very much interested in ramping up Russian-Indian trade and investment cooperation. We found the reports about the discussions during the forum very interesting. You have discussed very practical issues of business communication between yourselves. Just the last speaker talked about very specific things. You've also struck a number of very important deals and negotiated a number of projects and initiatives. Me and Mr. Modi believe it is a priority to develop trade and investment ties between Russia and India. This topic has traditionally been the priority for our negotiations, just like it was the case today and yesterday. I agree with Mr. Prime Minister that very sound and developed economic cooperation is the sound basis for deepening the relationships of special and privileged strategic partnership between our countries. We note with satisfaction the mutual growth in trade turnover. It's been growing sustainably. In 2017, there was a growth of 21% to $9.36 billion, and in January, from January to July of this year, it gained 20% more to $6 billion. And we want to achieve $10 and more billion of growth. That's impressive, but at the same time, the very impressive technological resource and staff potential allows us to seek even greater volumes of trade and investments. We also have a reference number to make our trade turnover $30 billion to 2025, and mutual investment should reach $15 billion for each of the countries. But we should aim even further when we cannot achieve that without actively working together between Russian and Indian business, without your work, ladies and gentlemen. We need to advance our industrial cooperation to create technological and investment alliances in knowledge-based areas. All these questions have been discussed in today at separate sessions and roundtables as part of the forum, where you have found new prospects to diversify and increase mutual trade, as well as to boost efficient investment into energy, digital economy, infrastructure, etc., etc. We have talked about it today and we have discussed it with Prime Minister Modi. I believe that all these useful developments would be supported by the government, by Russian and Indian ministries and agencies. The companies of the two countries would be actively engaged in implementing national programs of industrial development and to major infrastructure projects. We have decided that Russian and Indian governments would continue working together to eliminate any customs or administrative barriers which halt the movement of goods or services. I'm aware that the ministries discussed it between themselves and they talked about 5 areas they are working in, and I hope that they will conclude the work successfully. This would be further boosted by the Free Trade Area Agreement between the Eurasian Economic Union and India. Another key area for economic cooperation between Russia and India is energy. We held a special roundtable at the forum dedicated just for that. Our country has always been a sound supplier of energy for India. Of strategical importance are joint projects with regards to LNG. Gazprom and Gas Authority of India Limited are developing their very useful cooperation. In June, the first package of LNG was shipped to India. And Indian corporation ONGC is participating in the project Sakhalin-1. They are also involved in geological exploration on the Russian Arctic shelf. And for a long time, they've been working on the Vankorsky field. We are successfully implementing long-term contracts with Rosneft. Last year, the company bought Indian SR Oil This is the greatest foreign investment into Indian economy, which stands at $12.6 billion. I have already discussed it with Mr. Prime Minister. We would appreciate our partners to work in this area. This is a very long-term project that would develop for decades. It would bring great investment and great returns. We see that climate is changing, and this is a great area to work in. We can use the north route. We are building nuclear ships nowadays, 8 of them, and they would be gradually joining our fleet. This would provide for sustainable shipments of LNG to the global markets. That would be very interesting to work together to cooperate in this area. Russia has been helping India to develop nuclear energy. Rosatom is constructed Kudankulam nuclear power plant, and we are also considering building one more nuclear power plant based on Russian designs. Another prospect area of Russian-Indian cooperation is transport. Russian companies are now working on a project to modernize more than 500 kilometers of Indian railways. We want to revitalize our joint work to create the North-South corridor. This route would allow to shorten the time for delivery of goods from India to Europe. There are also a number of other very promising projects in high-tech where we can work together. Aviation, space, and other areas might be engaged, as well as medicine or pharmaceuticals. Here in this hall, I would like to highlight that we want to broaden the presence of Indian business in Russia. We want to create very convenient conditions to attract investment in technologies. Investors do get preferences. We are trying to simplify administrative regulations, and we are developing modern infrastructure. Russia has a great trade and industrial potential, and our economy has shown that it can tackle the most complex and the most challenging issues. We are now trying to reach new heights when it comes to development and long-term growth, modernization of industry, infrastructure, as well as social area. Positive dynamics have been shown by Russian macroeconomic targets, and this provides for sustainability of state finance. Our gold and currency reserves are also on the rise, and now we see a surplus of federal budget. We also see that the situation is improving on the labor market, which creates proper conditions for work. The level of unemployment stands at 4.7%, and the real growth of salaries stands at 8.7%, and this is a record high from 2012. We believe that the Indian business would fully make use of the opportunities which now open up on the Russian market. And we support Russian companies who are trying to work in India more actively. We will try to help Mr. Prime Minister implement his program Make in India. We talked about various areas, including military and technical cooperation. I believe that such a close cooperation between our businesses and further deepening of bilateral trade and investment ties is in line with the interest of our two countries. So I wish us every success, and thank you for your attention.